I hear you all like art, so there's going to be a lot of that this talk. Just get going with it. It's going to happen. Unlike most of our stories, we're going to start this one a long time ago, version of Earth far, far away, in the before times, in 2018. Right here, in fact. So let me paint you a picture. The summer of 2018 in Prague was the hottest summer that it had been in Prague in 244 years. Unfortunately, that record was broken in 2019, exactly the kind of jackpot we don't want to get excited about. But a demolition team arrives at a small home in Zbraslav. Now I can read my own slides. There we go. Arrives in a small house in Zbraslav, which is a suburb south of Prague. And as the mercury is climbing, they begin to tear down this 80-year-old building. At some point during the demolition process, a man who was heading up the demo ripped open the ceiling, and 30 or so canvas paintings fell onto his head. For those of you who are familiar with sledgehammering your way through old lath and plaster, or even newer drywall, this is not typical. A remarkable volume of work created between the 1910s and 1939, mostly impressionist portraits and scenes from nature, most signed with the name of a woman, Gertrud Kauders. But Kauders never lived in this now demolished house. Why were her paintings hidden in the walls? Why were they hidden at all? You don't need to be a student of art history to know the answer to that question. So that's Hitler. After Hitler promised he wouldn't, Nazi Germany invaded Bohemia and Moravia, the remaining free territories of Czechoslovakia, in March 1939. Kauders, who was 56 that year and Jewish, feared for her life and her life's work. She asked her close friend Nataly to help her hide her paintings. Since she wasn't Jewish, Nataly Aova would be safe from the Nazis. Her house, which was under construction, would make a perfect hiding place for Kauders' art. While the builders were working, Nataly and Kauders slipped the paintings into the walls, above ceilings, under floorboards. Apparently, all the while the construction crew continued to build the house. I don't know if the two of them were like super sneaky art-hiding ninjas. Were they, did they bribe or beg the builders to look the other way? We just don't know. But it happened. We do know how Kauders got to this point in her life, though. Gertrud was a native of Prague, born in 1883 to middle-class Jewish parents. Her first language was German, indicating her status and her parents' aspirations for her. This is her signature. And at some point in her young adulthood, she studied with noted Czech landscape artist Otakar Njedli at the Prague Academy of Fine Arts. Apparently, you're all a little off tonight. Farts, there you go. You're all old farts. No, you're not. Apparently, Njedli was famous for his paintings and for saying what Google Translate tells me is, "So many beautiful women, and I'm a landscaper." He thought he was funnier. So this is one of Gertrud's urban landscapes, possibly painted on one of their trips through Europe. It was under Njedli's tutelage that Gertrud met Nataly, who found herself in Prague after falling in love with a Czechoslovak freedom fighter who had been at war in Russia. She came home with him in 1920. Soon thereafter, Nataly and Gertrud would meet, studying art from Njedli. Thank you. They would often accompany their professor on weeks-long trips to paint the landscapes they saw in France and Italy, and this is where they became close friends. That's an older photo of Njedli and one of his landscapes. Gertrud had also grown close to her nephew Cornelius, apparently a fun-loving young man who was also known as the class clown. Between Hitler's invasion of Western Czechoslovakia in September 1938 and when he took Prague 6 months later, Cornelius would be the only member of the Kauders family to escape. Later still, Cornelius would recall his Aunt Gertrud as gentle and kind and utterly, completely uninterested in men. This sketch is important. It's suspected to be of Gertrud and Cornelius by Gertrud. And you've noticed maybe that I've tracked who's taking the photos of these paintings. That comes back. So 1939, Gertrude was soon identified by the Nazis as being a Jew. The records they made of their crimes show that Gertrude was arrested and then taken to Theresienstadt, a work camp north of Prague, in May 1942. Soon after that, she was deported to the Majdanek extermination camp in Lublin in Poland. I've been to Majdanek. It's pretty grim. I went to witness the remains of what was done to my family, their lovers, their friends, their neighbors, and so many others. It's not a good place. So back to Nataly Aova, who would go on to live into her 80s, and miraculously, she told nobody about the paintings in her walls. Went to the grave with it, with a secret. She never had any children, and her informally adopted son inherited the house. Eventually, the house would pass to that man's grandson, Jakub Sedlacek, who in 2018 hired the demo crew to tear it down. In 2018, just as the construction crew, the demo crew, found the paintings were nearly lost again just after they had been found. For the next 2 years, the 30 paintings were all that nearly everybody believed had been found. It's not really clear why. Was there bad reporting? Did people just not say what had really been what had really happened? We don't know again. But most of what I've told you so far is based on the reporting of Amos Chappell and Dina Katarina Vaskova. They're journalists for Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. Before I continue with Gertrud Kauders' story, I want to pull back our lens a little bit for a moment. One of the most notorious actions that the Nazis took was to destroy the art of the people they killed. Thank you. Oof, gosh. Drink more, maybe. I don't know. The atrocities that the Nazis committed against the Jews, the Romani, and the homosexuals and others they deemed undesirable was in so many ways a war against art and culture that they couldn't control. They documented much of what they did, and some of the looted art was recovered. Many of the countries that the Nazis controlled now maintain databases to track pre-World War II Jewish art. There we go. The French Ministry of Culture, for example, we're just picking on the French, because why not? Culture! There we go. I'm going to eat one of these, I swear. So the French Ministry of Culture, for example, maintains a database of like 2,000 or so of these artworks stolen from French Jews by the Nazis, and which today still remain in the custody of French museums. While these 2,000 objects represent only a partial list of French Jewish artwork, there we go, recovered from the Nazis, the list maintained by the premier French government agency in charge of this stuff, a country many times the size and the geographic the geographic size and population of Czechia. The database that the Czechs are using also has fewer than 1,800 items. So we're talking about really, really small numbers of art that are still in possession of these countries. It's a devastating loss. Suddenly, 700 paintings show up that nobody even knew existed. It's really remarkable. It's nothing less than an historical and artistic jackpot. So the chief curator of Prague's Jewish Museum calls this discovery of Gertrud Kauders' work unique in the context of the history of art within the Czech lands. There we go. We can cheer our Czech friends. Because of the sheer number of paintings, and they came from a previously unknown artist. But it would take until the summer of 2020 for everyone to understand how many paintings were found. Not just the 30 that smacked the demo foreman in the face, but 700. It's a lifetime of art from an artist whose life was cut short, horrifically so. Cut short, but not forgotten. Cornelius Kauders' daughter Miriam in New Zealand saw the 2018 news about the 30 paintings in the walls and tried to track them down. They were supposed to have been given to the Jewish Museum in Prague, but that hadn't happened. Miriam was friends with Amos Chappell's father. Amos Chappell's the photographer who has been taking all these photos that you're looking at, and one of the reporters who made this discovery. And by the summer of 2020, Amos and his colleague Dana had tracked down Sedlacek. So we're back in the summer of 2020 in Prague. It's the early months of the COVID pandemic. There's no vaccine in sight. Thousands of people are dying daily. Most of us are baking bread or bagels. Meanwhile, a Zealander journalist and his colleague are tracking down these 30 paintings from Gertrud Kauders because the Gertrud survivors on the other side of the planet didn't know what happened to them after their initial discovery in 2018. It's really remarkable. Initially reluctant, Sedlacek was eventually convinced by the journalist that Gertrud's heirs were legitimate and not just trying to, I don't know, steal the paintings or something. And he agreed to show them the paintings. They met in a Prague storage unit to photograph the artwork. Here we go. And Amos told the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, a news organization, that he'd intended to photograph the 30 paintings for the Jewish Museum of Prague. So he and Dana Vaskova get there. Sedlacek tells them that he's glad to see them, and now he'll show them the real collection. And this is a quote from Amos Chappell. He said, "We came around the corner and there was an enormous expanse of what was instantly recognizable as serious art. My mouth was hanging open. There were stacks and stacks in perfect condition, torn hastily out of their frames and hidden. To see these things was incredible, unforgettable. I will remember the moment for the rest of my life." Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty did a follow-up video report last year. The Crowder family now has possession of the portraits from the collection of the family members. And although many of the museums have expressed interest in showcasing Gertrud Kauders' work, the family has yet to decide how or when to start showing the collection. It's worth noting that, weirdly, the few photos of Gertrud's artwork that have been released to the public are not landscapes, and yet she was known as a landscape artist, apparently. Thank you. So let us raise a glass. A toast. I hope the Kauders family will soon decide to share the rest of her art with us. I can't wait to see more of her world. Thank you.